The Opera House by Kate Price. Scandal by the Back Door.
I hovered outside the front of the Opera House for the last time. Looking upwards, I saw the magnificent dome against the backdrop of a perfect blue sky. Every day it looked completely different. The clouds were just starting to chase themselves across the blue, breaking up the deepness of the colour. My eyes glided downwards and glanced at the posters either side of the door. In big writing pasted sideways they said, "Final night." Tonight really was the last night of this particular opera. I heaved a sigh and walked around the back to the stage door. George smiled, nodded his head and opened the door. This was the first day I'd really noticed him. I smiled back at him without uttering any words. I walked along the corridor and opened the door to the dressing room, put down my bag and hung the coat on the chair. Josie arrived as chatty as ever, over-enthusiastic and animated. She started getting my dress ready, and beginning with the bodice, started to lace it up the back. "Not so tight, Josie." "Sorry, Miss Selina. It doesn't seem to be getting together like it usually does." She continued lacing up the back. "Well, I don't know why. It's not as if I eat anymore." I was a little put out that she was intimating that I was putting on weight. "You're right, I guess it's just the way I'm doing it up tonight. All fingers and thumbs. But it's got to be right as it's the last night." She slid the dress over my head and did it up at the back. I sat down and she started doing my hair. I had to admit Josie was really good at this. There was a knock at the door. "Is it alright if I get this?" She looked at me in the mirror. I nodded and she went to the door. Like the chiming of an hour hand on a clock, there stood George with an enormous bunch of flowers and a small card. The flowers were absolutely stunning. "Good luck, darling," I read from the card. "With love from your husband, Arthur." Arthur, my husband of 5 years, hadn't missed a night. He'd brought flowers or chocolates, talked about the kindness and love. I think he was desperate for this production to finish, so I could go home for a little while until the next show. "Gorgeous, aren't they, Miss Selina? Shall I put them in the big crystal vase?" "Yes, please, Josie. Just over there on the dressing table. Now, shall we finish? Only the first call will be shortly, and I don't want anyone waiting for me on the last night." She fussed around me until my hair was perfect, and I felt ready for the most important night of the whole production. The crowd roared and I was ecstatic. My performance was greater than it had ever been. After a couple of encores and several vast bouquets of flowers, I made my way back to the dressing room. Sitting down looking in the mirror, I saw the door open very slowly. A head popped around and there was Thomas, looking absolutely amazing. His tight dinner jacket and sumptuous deep blue cravat brought out the blue in his eyes and his dark glossy hair.
Darling, that was amazing. Fantastic. Wonderful.
He came towards me, I stood up, and he swept me off my feet, spun me around and kissed me long and hard. "Hello, Thomas. Was that any good tonight?" I knew full well the answer.
Spectacular. Let me look at you again. You are just wonderful.
"Thank you, darling. Most kind." I kissed him for a second time.
I'm so very sad.
"I know. The last performance and then I return home to Guildford."
This is our last night.
He lifted my chin with his finger and looked deep into my eyes.
It's been the most beautiful encounter. Could we continue at the next show?
"Darling, I don't think so. I'm married. After all, it's been really lovely."
Can't we just go on a little longer?
"No, I think it's best we stop now, before we get too attached to one another." I smiled at him. He pulled me in closer, tighter.
We need to spend just one more night together. Do you leave tomorrow?
Not until the afternoon. I have a lot of packing to do, and then I get the train and go home for a rest. He was so close now that I could feel his breath on my cheek.
Then this has been the most wonderful time of my life, and I don't regret a single moment. You are such an extraordinary woman.
His arms wrapped around me, he bent down and kissed me gently.
No, sir. I said you can't go in there. Not without me checking it's all right to enter Miss Selina's dressing room.
It was the familiar voice of George the doorman.
If I want to go in and see my wife, I jolly well will.
Came the second male voice, and the door flew open with such force it bashed hard against the wall, shaking the pictures, one dropping to the floor.
Selina, what do you call this? And you, sir, what do you think you are doing? Put my wife down.
I pulled away from Thomas quickly, feeling flushed and embarrassed. Arthur, what are you doing here? You never ever come to one of my shows. How dare you come barging into my room?
How dare I? How dare I? I dare because you are my wife.
Throwing down his white gloves, he looked set to hit Thomas.
Let me explain, sir. Explain? What, that you are in an intimate encounter with my wife?
Arthur, you're taking this far too seriously. Thomas was merely taking a speck of dust out of my eye. I took Arthur's hand and stroked it lightly.
Were you Thomas? Yes, I had to get close because the light in here is so bad. I managed to get it. Otherwise, Selina's eye would have been very sore. Really? Selina, is this true?
Yes, darling. I leant forward and kissed his cheek, and behind his body I flicked my hand, intimating that I wanted Thomas to leave. I watched out of the corner of my eye as Thomas mouthed,
It's been wonderful. I love you.
and as quietly as he once entered, he departed from my dressing room and my life.